All right, let's jump right in. When you think about gender equality in Japan, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's this picture of a society that's, well, a little behind the times. But what if I told you the way we're looking at the whole situation is just wrong? Yeah, you hear this question a lot, right? It's this idea that Japanese women are somehow more conservative, and it's an idea that pretty much dominates the conversation, especially from the outside looking in. You know the stereotype I'm talking about? It goes something like this. Women in Japan just aren't as into feminism, they're happy with traditional roles, and they'd much rather be a housewife than climb the career ladder. No, not even close. What we're about to unpack here is that this isn't really a story about personal choices at all. It's a story about the system's design. You see, one of the biggest reasons we get the story wrong is that we're looking for a certain kind of activism, the kind that we're used to seeing. And frankly, that can be a massive blind spot. Okay, so check this out, because this slide really frames the issue perfectly. In a place like Taiwan, activism is loud, it's visible. You see it in street protests and heated public debates. But Japan's model for change? It's the polar opposite. It's quiet, it's internal. It's all about lobbying and slowly, piece by piece, reforming institutions from the inside. It's not flashy for sure, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. And this shows you where the real fight is. It's not about marches. It's about decades of hard work deep inside the system, chipping away at the rules that shape everyday life. We're talking about tax codes, insurance rules, family law. This is the hidden engine of change, humming along where most people never even think to look. So let's get to the absolute heart of the matter. This isn't some fuzzy, vague thing about culture. It's about something much more concrete. It's about the very specific, incredibly powerful operating system that's been running Japanese society since after the war. And this is the key. You have to understand this concept. Japan built what's called an enterprise-centric society. So instead of the government providing a huge social safety net, the big corporations stepped in to become the main source of security, pensions, benefits, you name it. But, and this is a huge but, that was really only for their full-time employees. So what about all the real-life risks? Things like raising kids, taking care of aging parents, or losing a job. Well, the system was ingeniously designed to push all of that responsibility away from the company and the government and drop it right onto the family. And that brings us to this absolutely brilliant theory from Professor Mari Osawa called the male breadwinner model. The whole system is basically built on one giant assumption, that a man will be the full-time worker protected by the company, and a woman will handle all the unpaid work at home, acting as the family's shock absorber for all those risks the system doesn't want to deal with. Let's just walk through the logic here. Step 1. The system supports the male worker. Step 2, that worker supports his family. Step 3, the family, and let's be real, mainly the woman, absorbs all the messy, unpredictable risks of life. And what's the end result? A super stable, predictable workforce for the corporations. You see? The housewife isn't a cultural preference. She's a critical component in the economic machine. Okay, so that's the big picture, the giant system. But how does that actually influence the deeply personal choice one woman makes about her own life? When she decides to stay home, is that really a free choice? Or is the system basically making the choice for her? Because the system doesn't just let this happen, it actively encourages it. We're talking about real, hard cash incentives. Tax deductions if your spouse doesn't work, pension benefits for stay-at-home partners. When you stack that predictable, low-risk path up against the high-stress, high-conflict path of trying to juggle a demanding career and family duties, well, the choice starts to look pretty darn logical. And this table just lays out the brutal reality of that choice. Look at the full-time career path. It's loaded with risk. You've got the constant conflict with family duties, and if you leave the workforce for even a few years, the penalty to get back in is massive. Now look at the other path. Sure, there are risks, like being economically dependent, but look what it offers. Stability, flexibility, and actual institutional support. It's an asymmetric choice. Which brings us to this quote, and it is so powerful. When we see women making a supposedly conservative choice, it's not a betrayal of feminist ideals. It's a giant flashing red light telling us that the system itself has failed them. It's simply the most rational strategy for managing your life in a system that makes the alternatives incredibly difficult and costly. It's not about a lack of ambition. It's about making the smartest play you can within a deeply flawed game. So this forces us to totally rethink what we even mean by progress. Maybe we've been measuring the wrong thing this entire time. Because real gender equality is not a numbers game. It's not about making sure 50% of CEOs are women, or that every woman chooses a career. That completely misses the point. The real measure is this. Does the system make it possible for people to choose different ways of life? Can a woman build a career or be a primary caregiver or do something in between without being forced to pay an insane penalty for that choice? That's the real goal.
And that, of course, turns the question right back around on all of us. It's easy to look at another country and judge the choices people make, but it's a lot harder and a whole lot more important to ask ourselves, what are the hidden rules of the system we're living in, and which of our own choices, which feels so personal, are actually just the most rational response to a design we can't even see?